Do you use Helm? If yes, which version do you currently use? And do you see benefit of using Helm? This is an opener question for you in a DevOps interview. Usually, these kinds of questions are asked in the opening section of the interview when they are checking your knowledge on Kubernetes. If you have again taken any kind of Kubernetes training, then in this case, you will be aware of what is Helm and what problem it solves. And that is what we are supposed to explain in this video, that is in this interview question that has been asked. Let us see what is the answer. But before that, let us try to understand some of the details about Helm. So yes, we use Helm. That is what you can say if you have understood what is Helm and have used it in your organization. The Helm version that we currently have is version 3. Hence, I recommend that you say we are using Helm version 3. There is also Helm version 2, which is a previous version, and you might have certain applications in your organization which might be still using Helm 2, which is totally fine. If you have not seen this practically, I would suggest you to stick with Helm 3 version. So now let us understand what Helm is trying to solve, what problem Helm is trying to solve. If you see, for a single application in Kubernetes, you might end up writing multiple files as a part of an application. You might have a deployment set, a replica set, a service account, etc., etc. If you were to have 20 different kinds of applications are running in Kubernetes, it becomes a lot more difficult to manage everything in Kubernetes just by using the Kubernetes file. So what is the solution that we have? The solution that was brought in was nothing but Helm chart. As you can see from the diagram, all of these files are combined to a single format called as chart, where it uses templating format to make it easy for us to maintain this chart. The beauty of Helm chart is just by altering a value file, we will be able to make multiple kinds of deployments. That is, we can maintain a production deployment, we can maintain staging, testing, environment, etc. That is the use case of Helm chart. Also, it makes the deployment easy, it makes the rollback easy, the upgrade also becomes easier, and maintaining multiple sets of environment also becomes easier. So how do we answer this question in the interview then? Yes, we use Helm, and currently we are using Helm 3. Helm is a way in which we are packaging all our Kubernetes deployment related files in the format of what we call as chart. This chart will help us to make the deployment easier, rollback and upgrade also very easy. Using this Helm chart, it also becomes a lot more easier to handle different environments like production, staging, and testing just by making some variations in the values file that will be present as part of our Helm file. This is about what is Helm and how to answer this question if it is asked in the interview. Let us now go to our next question. And the question is, why use Helm in K8s? K8s is basically another way of saying Kubernetes. And the question is, why are we using Helm in Kubernetes? If you have taken any training regarding Kubernetes, in the end of the training, they would have thought about Helm for sure, because there is a very important use case for Helm, and it is a way in which most of the companies today will be deploying their applications in Kubernetes. So how would you answer this in the interview? Let's see that now. Before that, let's try to understand a bit about Helm. Helm helps you to manage Kubernetes application in the form of what we call as Helm charts. And this is a way of bringing all the complex small YAML files that you have when you deploy an application. If you deploy a simple web application, doesn't matter which, you would need a deployment, you would need a backup service, you need a service account, a secret, whatnot. Handling all of these YAML files is okay if it is just one application. But what if you're handling 20 different applications in your Kubernetes cluster? You will end up with so many of these small files. Needless to say, if you have a live setup and then staging, again, you will end up with so many files. To tackle this problem and to make our deployments simpler, easier, there is a format of packaging all of them in the format of charts, and that is called as Helm. And Helm will help us not just to deploy an application, it will help us to roll back the application, maintain a version, and share with others. Okay, so how do we answer this question in the interview if it is asked? Helm is basically a way in which we can manage our Kubernetes application. And it is very important when we have many applications running on our Kubernetes cluster. Also, Helm will help us not just to deploy the application, but it will help us to maintain a version of it, share it with others, and make sure that any changes that happens on my application is monitored and can be rolled back very easily. This is currently a standard way of deployment that is suggested, in my opinion, as a DevOps engineer for any kind of application deployment in an organization. I hope you understood this particular questions as a part of this video and also were able to reevaluate your knowledge on DevOps. Which Helm repository do you use today to store and access your Helm charts? So here they are focusing upon the tooling system that you use to store your Helm charts. And yes, it is important to store the Helm charts in a proper way so that it is easily accessible and has proper versioning setup. So what is the answer for this question? First, let us try to understand a bit more details regarding Helm chart storage. We should be already aware what Helm chart is. And once we have prepared a Helm chart or trying to use a Helm chart, we need to store it because our Kubernetes cluster can access it as a part of the deployment. If you're storing any kinds of charts, by default, you will also have versionings available, and this will help you to do easy rollback or upgrade in future. Meaning you might have a chart that says version 1, and then you might have version 2. So this versioning will help you to roll back or in case upgrade to the future versions. So what are some of the ways you can store it? We have Cloudsmith, JFrog Artifactory, Amazon S3, and Google Cloud Storage. You can store your Helm charts in any of these ways that is available. What about open source Helm repositories? Do we have a place where we can get open source Helm charts? Definitely yes. We do have a way to do that, and that is done via Artifact Hub. You can see on my screen, I have opened the Artifact Hub. And this Artifact Hub is a place where all the open source Helm charts are stored. You can see multiple examples here. I will go and type Tomcat and press enter. And you can see there is a Helm chart for Tomcat. And there is a lot of information about this chart. There is information about the usage, the security report, etc. So this is a place that is Artifactory Hub is a place where all the open source charts will be present, and you can directly reference Artifactory Hub also to download this chart as a part of the deployment. So how do you answer this question in the interview? You have to be very careful when you do so. first understand that if you are a part of a DevOps team, then try to check which Helm chart repository are using to store it. If you are attempting a DevOps interview by practicing DevOps and learning DevOps, then I would say you mentioned that you are storing it in AWS S3 as a part of Helm chart repository, or JFrog repository as a part of your Helm chart repository in the organization.